the decline in PC sales is a function of the extent to which their functionality has been superseded by other devices.
I'm here with Lishi and John with AI Snippins, and today we're talking computers and Mac versus PC with friends who love to give each other the business.
We're seeing even now a whole lot of sort of special purpose tech devices, lots and lots of special purpose interface keyboards. For example, the ones in the self checkout in the supermarkets, right? You interface with them through a laser scanner. You also interface with them through a keyboard. You also interface with them through a touch screen. So I think keyboards will play a part in the interface environment in cases, for example, if you were doing something scientific or something genetic, obviously at that point you don't want to be ambiguous and use your voice because, or if you're doing microsurgery over 5G, kind of want to, I think, be using a keyboard because you don't want any oopses in those cases.
I'm all thumbs bonus. I try to sew someone up and remove their appendix or something. And
But Apple, two things. One, they were irresponsible as a network client for a very, very, very long time. They were super chatty. They were really slow. We used to literally segment it out. We used to say, okay, the Apple part of the network is going to be for artists and vice presidents, right? And then the rest of the network is going to be for really power users.
Like even for like where I used to work, we were editing like trailers and like the guys made movie posters. Those
Mhm.
were Mac. All the accounting people were on PC.
I worked at a company that was famous for networking. They were one of the first Cisco partners, DSW. And I bought an iBook, the white iBook, which was a very sexy little form factor computer. I really liked the way it looked. It was a horrible performance. I brought it to the office one Christmas and I had it on my desk. I actually walked by my desk and looked and I thought it was a piece of notebook paper on my desk. I'm like, oh my God, you're such a gorgeous little computer. Anyway, somebody came charging over to my desk and said, "Is that thing on the network?"
I would tell that guy to mind his beeswax and kick him in the goods.
Apple's model was you can only run our software on our hardware. You can only run our hardware with our software. We own that. And that is what allows them to have 35% markups on everything. Whereas, at Samsung, it's all like 3 and 4 and 5%.
Nobody ever got laid with a Samsung in their pocket. Bonus.
They're not a computer company. Apple is a lifestyle company. You wear the
I don't know
shirt,
what that means.
you wear the shirt, you buy the watch, and every 2 years you buy a new watch. The battery is killed with every update. It's planned obsolescence. So every time you upgrade something, it's gonna suck, and then you have to buy a new one. But this goes all the way back to the light bulb. Don't even get me started with planned obsolescence. Apple is a lifestyle company. It's about being part of Apple. I'm a creative person.
To me, Apple is sort of like a really false prophet, and it's like kind of a really low value prophet. I mean, to me, it's sort of like, worshiping, I don't know, chicken noodle soup or something. I mean, it's really
Worshiping is very close to what I'm talking about.
right. But I mean, to me, that's sort of idiocy. Why would you worship somebody who makes a watch?
You're not
There's a lot.
you're not worshiping the people, you're worshiping the product.
Okay, and again, my question comes to why would you waste your time worshiping a product when there's so many better things to worship?
That's what marketing is based on.
That's my point. That's my point. It's H.L. Mencken. It's P.T. Barnum. There's a sucker born every minute. That's what it is.
An opossum won't get you to heaven, but a frog's most tender when fricasseed. AI Southern sayings are the cat's pajamas.
Now, John, you have a podcast, right? Well, what's it about?
I have a podcast called Retrospectopia. It's on Spotify right now. I don't know if I'm going to platform it anywhere else yet. It just kind of talks about where I am sort of at the end of the road, looking back. It basically tries to answer the question, what the hell was I thinking? It's kind of looking at the mistakes that we all make in our lives and going, how did I miss the mark that far? And doing that in different parts of my life.
That sounds interesting. Did I mention that Robbie is a very beautiful man?
There's this concept now that the options are, and by the way, this is actually what my podcast is about, is this concept that people have that their choices are so limited that they'll say, well, I might as well worship these guys in Cupertino that make phones and watches, right? That's a good allocation of my attention, my resources, and my devotion is to some guys who routinely rip me off by 25 to 30% on everything that they sell me compared to the marketplace, simply with the justification of, we're cool, and our stuff only works with our stuff.
Mhm.
That's their entire business model,
Mhm.
right?
But hey, you want to be 1984? No, you don't. You don't want to be 1980. Remember that 1984 commercial of Apple?
Here's the funny part about that. That was them talking about them being the open company and IBM being the big bad wolf. And now,
But
the
that's
worm
okay.
has turned.
No.
The worm has turned.
I've never been a Steve Jobs fan, never
No.
been a Elon Musk fan. I kind of don't like them, but I've always wanted a Tesla car. There's that
Yeah.
that cult of personality that I just
That's
don't
the
care
point.
about.
That's the point.
After the debacle with my iBook, I had just gotten into technology sales and I really wanted to be, one of the guys. So I bought my first PC and I was like freaking out. This tech nerd, he goes, I know it's a very emotional thing to change from Mac to PC. And it was like, I couldn't believe that this total techie guy could understand the emotions that I was having. But not being a fanboy of all this stuff, my first smartphone was an HTC Evo, which was the shit at the time.
Right.
And after a few months, I realized it was really not a very solid device. And so I went back to an iPhone because the experience that I had with Apple computing devices, Apple hardware, was better than I had with the PC.
I thought it was going to go somewhere
It was, and
And that absolutely makes sense. I would suggest to you that is extremely dissimilar from what Boney was talking about, because he's talking about this emotional attachment and identification relationship with this product company.
That's
It's
exactly.
another thing to go in and say, do what you did and what I did, because my Fitbits never worked. I went, screw it. I got to get an Apple Watch. Once I got an Apple Watch, I got to have an Apple phone, because otherwise the watch isn't going to tell anybody how long I've slept. Once I have the phone, I might as well get the pad, because then my Hulu will link up or whatever. In other words, that's how they suck you in, and that's their thing. So it's the trade-off. The trade-off is you can live in the comfortable world of Apple, and we're going to screw you, as Boney said, every couple of years we're going to come by and stick it in and take out a withdrawal. But everything's going to work, and everything's going to talk to each other, and don't worry about a thing. Or you can wander off and find your own better solution and say, I'm going to try the OnePlus Fold or the Samsung whatever, and I'm going to run whatever on my computers, and maybe my drivers work so good. Maybe, I have 3 computers. They all have weird crap that happens to them, and I just accept it. And that's not the case in the Apple world, but for me, it's not worth it. And that's one issue is the tech trade-off. What Boney was talking about, that cultural identification with a products company, that's a function of marketing. That's a function of people not really understanding what their options are, what they should be paying attention to.
Like, I worked in marketing for like 30 years or whatever, but
Right.
It was film marketing. But like the holy grails of marketing is one, what 7-Up did, because they were going up against Pepsi and Coke. And what did they say? They said we're the Uncola. Now they are a cola, but they said we're the Uncola. Genius, right? That's like the mwah of marketing. And the other thing is what Apple did. Because what Apple did is they were like, we're going to use lacy Mobos, crappy non-DDR RAM. Everyone can go suck it. You could build a PC 100 times better than any Mac, and you still can, by the way, for a third of the price.
Right.
But it's an Apple. And the
Right.
cases were all very cute, and they were bubbly, and they were beautiful, and they had lovely colors.
There really isn't enough sex in this episode.
All of the advances in the internet are either due to requirements of porn or DOD, Department of Defense.
Well, yes.
John, is that true?
There was a time when we were walking in, talking to certain companies in the Valley who had these massive silicon graphics machines. And so we had a partner for a while. I can't remember the name of it was Inter something or other. And they had a really first gen storefront. I remember they flew me to New York for some show that they were putting on, and I went in there and there was nobody there. It was not a good harbinger. But we managed to sell one of those to, it was either Hustler, Larry Flint, LFP, or it was one of those big providers, maybe Vivid. And they were one of the first people to roll online with these massively parallel systems, streaming content out into the internet, which of course it didn't support. The internet back then and servers back then were not, the TCP/IP stack back then didn't have the ability to deliver quality of service for streaming audio, let alone streaming video. It took a really, really long time for them to, take this Unix operating system, which had been developed to be a word processor at AT&T, and turned it into something that was scalable enough. Remember Mark Matosa? He used to talk about that stuff, but he was like Netscape employee number 13 or something. And he used to talk about how they would have to go in and tweak the retransmit rates and all these other things in TCP because nobody knew if anybody had an idea of what the internet was going to become, do you really think they would have started every URL with www dot? Let's just type this a billion times for no reason at all, right? It was just nobody really had a clue where it was going. Some of the protocols have held up really well. The mail SMTP works really well, what everybody uses for mail. But everything else, man, the hardware and the network were so far behind the software for so long. Not now, but they were for a really, really, really long time.
You had me at porn, then lost me at nerd talk.
So I have tallied our votes, and feel free to run in the comments section who you think is never right in this episode.
My impression of Chicago is what a wonderful city. Why the fuck did they build it here? It's like the weather is just horrific.
Chicago's one of the only cities in the world.
The only city? What in tarnations?
No, it's a very, very cool city. Like I said, just there's never a good time of year to visit Chicago. It's always
That's your pie hole. Chicago's awesome.
there. You go.
You're never right.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want more content from the Never Right podcast.